Why did you decide to implement Building Learning Power?
Okay, Nayland's a really successful school, attainment is high, but what we noticed about our children was that we felt that they were children who waited to be taught rather than looked to learn. And we'd been through a number of different avenues trying to find something that really inspired children to take control of their own learning, to lead their own learning, and really weren't finding anything. I was at a conference hosted by the NCSL in London and heard some teachers from some schools in Bath talking about building learning power. What I caught was the word power, because particularly boys love the idea of power.
What convinced you that this was something you wanted to implement in your school?
Okay, went to visit the schools in Bath, met a little boy called Aaron, and asked him, what's building learning power? Actually the first thing he said was, are you a teacher? And I said, yes, and he went, and then explained to me that if his teacher is teaching a brilliant lesson and he doesn't know how to manage his distractions and there's something going on the other side of the classroom, no matter how good his teacher is, how hard she's working, how well she's teaching, he's not learning because he hasn't learned how to manage his distractions. He doesn't know how to learn well. And it just flicked a switch for me, and I thought, yep, Aaron's got it. And it's a shame I couldn't have bottled them and taken them home, really. But so Aaron decided it for me.
And what impact do you think Building Learning Power has had on your school?
I think it's that very thing, that learner-led learning. There's a lovely quote I heard a little while ago, and it was a Confucius quote, and it said, to learn without thinking is to labour in vain. And to me, the spoon-fed learning we were giving our children was that learning without thinking. I think what we've got now is children who think for themselves, who want to learn. When you've got a class of reception children and their topic is around our school, and they're learning about nocturnal animals in school, and they're going home and they're wanting to find out, and they're bringing things in for you, and they're telling you, I'm capitalising, Miss Delaney, I've been really resourceful, my daddy told me this, and my nanny helped me look on the internet to find. That gives you a real sense that you've made a difference to these children. You've made a long-term difference, not just this topic, this day, in this lesson, but for that child forever. And surely that's what we get into teaching for.
And what about the impact this has had on your staff? What do you think are the advantages for them?
I think what we've learned to do a lot is to stand back and let children learn and not feel that we want to fill the spaces for them straight away. So if they need time to think, we give them time to think. If they want to find out for themselves, we let them find out. If they want to go in a different direction, then that's what's obviously leading them. And I think we've got less caught up in filling up their fact bucket and making sure that we've given them every bit of knowledge, and more concerned with helping them to know how to find out for themselves when and if they need it.
What do you hope will be the long-term impacts and benefits for your children?
I certainly hope that when they leave us, that they leave with a sense of themselves as a learner and an empowerment to keep behaving that way. We had some of our children interviewed by Ofsted very recently, and they explained to the Ofsted inspector that they would always go on learning because they are learners, which was fairly impressive for, for our inspection. I think the other thing we're looking for really is for the schools that our children feed into to take this on board as well, and that's beginning little by little, so that there is that common language of learning from 4 to 19.
So what do you think you would say to a head to a school who was considering implementing BLP but was perhaps sceptical about what it could actually bring them?
I would actually say it's not so much how can we take this, but how can we take this on board? How can we not? Because we owe that to children, don't we? To give them those tools to be able to keep learning forever. And I think I would also say that there's an awful lot that's already going on in schools that is about building learning power. And it's not such a great job to make it overt for the children, to show them what we already know is happening. So often when we set up an activity in school, say we set up a learning activity in science, we know that we want them to use their reasoning muscles, we know that we want them to collaborate with one another, but we don't necessarily tell them that. It's not such a great job of work to actually tell them not just what we want them to learn, but how we want them to learn it. And I think what I would say to schools is, it's not so hard, and the benefits are huge for the children. The benefits are pretty good for the staff as well, because it actually makes your job easier.
Do you think BLP, though, is just something that's confined to the classroom?
Definitely not. The sign at the front of our school says learning together, learning for life. It doesn't say learning together, learning in school. And I think the reaction of parents is, you know, they've noticed things like children talking about how they've learned when they've, when a little boy that I can think of, learning to use a yo-yo and explaining that he had to really, really persevere. Did he learn on his own? No, he learned from his Uncle Graham. And that was, and he'd used his imitation muscle. And the little boy was actually my son, who also goes to a learning-powered school. And what struck for me was that he understands that learning is learning. It doesn't make any difference whether it's maths learning, literacy learning, or yo-yo learning. It's still learning. And we've had lots of parents in school come and give us similar stories about how different their children are, how they stick at things, how they're up for a challenge is another one that we've had a lot of feedback from. And parents getting involved in sharing their learning with children as well. So we have a poster board in our school, and it has things on there that children have learned outside of school, that staff have learned outside of school, and parents have started adding to it as well. So children are starting to see their parents as learners, which is, you know, that's great role modelling.